One of my fears was that people would read my book. Okay.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I mean it sounds crazy now, but when you read my book, you are stepping into one of my most intimate places,
Mm,
my head. Okay.
mm,
You get to see everything that's happening inside, and that
mm,
is like very sacred.
mm.
When I finally published, I felt completely naked. Like, oh my God, now the whole world can know the trauma that usually happens.
It's not always easy to know the right thing to do since the consequences of our actions are often felt in the future. Well, that's the introduction of today's book. Today's book that we are looking at is If Love Had a Heart. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the SelfSeed podcast. And if you're new to the podcast, you're wondering, okay, what's this podcast about? Well, it's your friend in personal development. And today with me, I have Nicole Littlejohn, who is an author of a book called If Love Had a Heart. And welcome, Nicole. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to be here.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you're here. And today we are going to talk about the book. We are going to listen to Nicole's journey. We're going to listen to her story. And she's going to also explain about the book. I mean, we have to get a glimpse of the book. And furthermore, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. And this is almost episode 35. We're almost finishing the virtual book tour. And if you've been with us from the beginning, you can witness that we have had many wonderful authors, and Nicole is just one of them. And I hope you'll enjoy today's podcast. And the podcast, is available on all major platforms, or you can just search it on Google, or you can go to www.selfseed.transistor.fm and listen to your favorite episodes from the podcast. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope you will not be disappointed today. Nicole, welcome to the podcast again. It's my honor to have you here and listen to your wonderful stories today. And I'm ready to learn, ready to enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and I am definitely here to share, to let everyone know about my book and my journey.
Awesome, awesome. And on that same note, why don't we kickstart with the introduction where people get to know you? And let's just be accustomed to you, correlate with you,
Okay.
correlate with your story.
Okay.
Welcome.
All right. So, who is Nicole? I guess I am a full-time mother, a full-time wife, a full-time ESL teacher, a full-time author. I do a lot of things. But my greatest love, I would say, in terms of my hobbies, is writing.
Mm,
Okay, I
mm,
love to write. I enjoy writing. I write for me and hope that others will also enjoy what I put on paper.
wow.
Yeah. But my writing is where I escape. Um, with life happening, it's not always easy to find a moment to write, but thankfully I've been able to publish not one but two books. Okay. And I
Congratulations.
am currently working on the third. Finding the time to write is so difficult, so very difficult.
Congratulations on that. I mean, I envy people who can finish 3 books, and hopefully before I pass someday I'll also finish many books. But yeah, my curiosity is, when did you start writing? Did you start this in a long time or just a couple of years back?
Well, I've always been writing. My inspiration
Mm,
was and is actually my older sister, Latoya.
mm,
She started writing and reading, and she's a few years older than me. So when she would bring home her books, or when they were doing Shakespeare, and of course she came home and she was so passionate about it, and that sparked my spark.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
And of course, she was writing poetry and stories. So I started writing poetry because, I mean, she's my big sister. Of course, I want to do everything she does, you
right.
know? So I started writing very, very early. I was in the sixth grade, I think, the first time I wrote something. And throughout high school, I was also writing. By the time I got to the 10th and 11th grade, I was writing plays that we were performing as students. Okay.
Mhm,
And I wrote a poem. I was supposed to represent my school at a national festival, and my category was Jamaican patois and English together. And I could not, for the life of me, find something that I wanted to perform.
mm,
So I was frustrated, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to just write something myself. And it took me 5 minutes to
mm,
get something down. And when I did, it was bigger than me. I could not perform what I had written. So, of course, I went to school and I'm like, okay, so here's the perfect piece, but I can't do it. All right. So
mm.
they had to give it to another student. We're still in touch now, so many years later. But she got a bronze medal for that piece.
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
Which was amazing, which was so good. And of course, then I started writing this book
mm,
at the very end of high school. And it took me 20 years to publish this book. 20 very, very long years for a number of reasons. But I decided that I would not write or start another project until this one was finished, which is why this is my first book. Okay.
right.
After I published this book, my second book, I published that like a month or 2 months later. So I wrote a full book and published in under a month. It's like this book was blocking everything else. Like I had to get this out
Right.
or nothing else could come out. But once it was out, like there was there was a flow.
The door opened.
Okay? So, yes, exactly. But I enjoyed writing my first book. It was beautiful. All of the highs and lows were worth it. Okay,
Mm,
everything about it was worth it. Um, just to give you a little backstory as to why I even started writing this book,
mm,
I was at the time in high school, and sorry, there was a campaign put on by the Jamaican government about or to kind of educate people
right.
who were dealing with persons that were surviving HIV or even AIDS at the time. They were being ostracized, they were being discriminated against,
Mm,
they were treated poorly.
mm,
So of course the government put on this campaign, and that's when I became aware of it. I wasn't aware before. And I started thinking to myself, what if that person was me? You know, I wouldn't want to be locked in some dark room, forgotten,
mm, right.
like somebody's shame. I would never want that for myself. So I started thinking and thinking. I do that a lot. Um, but but I put myself in that person's shoe, and these were or neighbors or friends or families. You don't do that to another human being.
Mm,
Okay. And I didn't agree with it. um so I started writing my own version. My book is fiction, but there's a lot of information. I tried to ensure that it had up to date information. It was published in 2021.
mm,
So up to that time, the information, I did a lot of research. I did not speak to anyone who was HIV positive before I published my first book. Okay.
Mm.
Mostly because I did not think that I was ready or maybe even worthy to do that, because the 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 subject is very sensitive.
All right.
Okay, and I didn't think that you could just walk into someone's story or into someone's life unless you're there to help,
Mm.
unless you have a purpose,
All right. Mm.
and I didn't think that I had anything concrete to offer to anyone. But of course, after I published my book, then that all changed. I did a series of podcasts, and I was able to talk to, I had spoken to professionals before. But when I was doing my podcast, I spoke to other professionals, and there are so many,
Mm.
so many. And I also spoke to persons who were surviving HIV. Okay.
All
And I
right.
learned a lot. I'm still learning. I'm always learning, and I'm always open to learning new things. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a little bit about my journey. It was fun. It was difficult when I finally published.
Yeah.
One of my fears was that, yes, I wanted to publish. Yes, I wanted to share my work. I feel like I owed it to
Right.
other authors that I read their books.
Mm. Mm.
But one of my fears was that people would read my book. Okay.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I mean, it sounds crazy now, but when you read my book, you are stepping into one of my most intimate places,
Mm.
my head. Okay,
Mm.
you get to see everything that's happening inside, and that is like very sacred.
Mm.
When I finally published, I felt completely naked. Like, oh my God, now the whole world can know the trauma that usually happens.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was difficult, but it was very, very worth it, because after I got over that initial reaction,
Mm.
I was just happy to share my book. And then I became very surprised at how many of my friends and family actually read it. Like, read. They read.
Right.
Because before that, I was begging people to like read this draft and that draft and that draft and that draft. After I published, people were just, okay, just give me your information and I'll get the book. Give me your information. So everyone was, I mean, I had a lot of support, okay, before with all of my drafts. I had
Right.
several friends that read several versions, some of them who, after a while, they were just tired. Um, but after I published,
Right.
I realized that everyone was just waiting for me to get this book out. Everyone was actually waiting for the book. Right now, I'm working on the second part. This one is If Love Had a Heart. I'm working on If Love Had a Soul. Okay.
Mm.
And I'm almost finished with that. Just before I connected, I sent the first draft to a friend. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to bother less people this time. And someone said to me, don't wait 20 years to finish the second book. So I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Okay. Hopefully, I will have that finished by the end of this year to publish, because I know I have a few people waiting for part two. Mhm.
That's nice. That's nice. How you have gone through that shaping process of your authorship, and eventually the day that you released the book, although you felt like that, but the feedback kind of kept you afloat. Yeah, the feedback of
Yes.
people kept you
Yes.
afloat. That's very good. Now I'm wondering what specifically is the book about? Because I see like forbidden teenage love separates two innocent souls who struggle in a world of intolerance and ignorance. Can they overcome the challenge to find each other and themselves? Well, you say if love had a heart, is there attempt to build bridges where barriers currently reside? Is
Okay.
is this about teenage love? Is this about
It it is. It
mm,
is. It is teenage impossible love.
mm,
Okay. So, of course, the usual books that I read at the time was always girl meets boy, you know?
mm,
So I thought, why not girl meets boy, but in the context of HIV/AIDS? The thing is,
mm,
for a lot of people,
mm,
especially parents, we don't consider we have this issue with talking about sex
mm,
with our kids,
mm,
okay? And
mhm,
what a lot of us don't realize is that if you are not talking to them, someone else is. They
mm,
are curious, they do have questions, and they will find answers. You need to be a part of that conversation, okay?
right.
For their sake and for yours. All right? And it's not a talk, it is a conversation. So, in this book, I tackle some of those issues. Okay,
Mm, mm,
so they are teenagers; they're pretty young. It's coming of age. It is self discovery. Um, there is a lot that I was able to explore. There's some things that I didn't explore, okay,
right, right.
which I am currently exploring in book two because I wanted it to be read not just by teenagers, not just by young adults, but for everyone.
Mm,
Okay. A
mm,
lot of the information that we had back when I was in high school,
mm,
for a lot of us, that's where our information on HIV stops. So there is the possibility to learn and educate yourself as a parent, as an adult, what's going on now, what's happening. Um, so just going back to the book itself,
right.
so they meet each other, they connect, and there is this elephant in the room basically that they have to overcome. Can you love me? Can I allow you to love me? Okay.
Mm,
So it's not just about one person going, oh no, I'm doing you a favor. I'm doing all of this.
right,
It's also, oh my God, there's a kind of rejection. How could you possibly love me? All
right,
right.
right.
Sorry. And all of that in the space of, or in the high school setting. Okay.
Mhm,
We don't often put ourselves in our kids' shoes. It's always, oh, they're young, they'll learn, this is normal, that, but their problems are problems.
yeah.
Okay, they're
Eventually become
real.
bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, they're real. So of course they are in high school and they have to overcome all
Mm,
of this in order to be together. So the question is, will they do that? Will they be able to do that? Will society allow them to do that? Can they themselves open enough to get to a space where they are willing to give love and to receive love? Okay, I understand that it's pretty controversial. Nobody wants to think about, oh, my teenage daughter, this is her first love. And now there is this cloud or this issue. It is not like that.
right,
Okay, there is also the idea of hope.
right.
For many persons, when they find out that they are HIV positive, there is this depression. Okay, understandably so. I mean, I understand why,
Mm,
but for a lot of people, it goes beyond that and can also affect their health. That's my 2-year-old. Okay, he's up at
yeah,
12,
right.
but daddy has him, so he'll be fine.
Mm,
But can they overcome with all of these things happening? Can they find each other?
mm,
Okay. And of course, the second book. if love had a soul,
Mm.
it sees them as adults. Okay, or
Oh,
it will see them as adults. Yes.
right.
And there I have a lot more freedom, for want of a better word, to happily allow my characters to be adults.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
because also at the heart of it, I believe that everyone, regardless of what you're going through, you deserve to be loved,
Right.
to feel loved.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
that's very good. That's very good. And I think for someone who will read the part one, will definitely have to go to the next step because it's a continuation, right? Like it's the same characters,
Yes.
but just
Yes.
they're from
Yes.
teenage years and now they're adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are
Yes.
some, but beware, there are some adults stuff, according to Nicole, she said. So yeah, that's very good. And I'm wondering, with all these shaping of your character and being able to storytell this journey of someone um without any AIDS and someone with AIDS and them being able to accept each other the way they are and making this person realize that yeah, you can be loved, and this other person showing that yes, you are worthy of love. Has there been any challenges now in the reception of the message, the intended purpose of this book so far since its publication? Or
um
has there been
mm,
let's say maybe testimonies that yeah, I never saw it like this, but now.
okay, so there's not been any pushback,
Mm,
basically, or not as much as I was expecting. But what I have realized is that a lot of people
mm,
don't even think about HIV.
mm,
They don't. Okay. A lot of the information that I found, I shared with people in my circles, family, friends, and they're just like, "Wow, I didn't even know that that was a thing," you know?
mm, mm,
Um, and of course, the idea of talking to our youth about sex. I currently live in Chile, and it is a very traditional society. There's not there's not an openness. Okay,
mm,
maybe you will find parents fine, but the general consensus is don't talk to them about sex at all. Okay,
mhm,
it's basically still taboo. um I would say that that continues to be an issue. Okay,
mm,
so not a lot of people will gravitate towards, oh, here are two teenagers that are finding themselves and finding each other and in the context of HIV. There is not an openness or a willingness to even broach the topic of sex, much less to go further. Okay,
mm,
so that has been something. I was also told by someone that stigma does not exist anymore re HIV or AIDS. Okay, that is not true. That is unfortunately not true. The person that said that to me lives in Florida. She is a nurse, and she works in the healthcare system. But it depends on where you are. Maybe that's her reality, and that's amazing.
mm.
That's fabulous. For a lot of people, they would love for that to be their reality as well.
Right.
But I interviewed persons from the Caribbean, from Mexico, um, from someone who was working here in Chile. She was Karima. She was in the US working in like the 80s, way back when everything was starting.
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
Well, starting for many people, like, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But she educated me that it was even before that. The 80s were that's not the start.
Mm,
um so there was a lot that I learned, and I do believe that for many people, or for a lot of people, there was a lot that they did not know as well. So we we're on this journey to learn it together. All right. So far, I have not had pushback because I feel like people want to hear this, and
mm,
the people who are surviving HIV also want this to be told. Okay.
right.
So when I had my podcast, of course I gave persons the platform to tell their stories so that others can be educated. Yeah. It is it's literally in the silence that we have issues. So the more we talk about it, the more we educate each other and ourselves,
Mm,
the better off we will be.
right. Very right. Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing about your book, but rather sharing your story, because that's even more meaningful, as connecting the book with the real life, because it's not fiction. Do they call it non-fiction? Yeah, it's not a fiction book. So, but yeah, it's a it's a life up daily life application. So thank you very much. And it is at this moment that I would welcome you again to be able to, what we call it, market yourself. How can people connect with you? How can people connect with with this work? Furthermore, I know people
Mhm.
can easily get it from the podcast description, but yeah, how can people connect with you? You're welcome to share that.
Okay, well, I have a website,
Mm,
pretty easy to remember. It's NicoleLittlejohn.com.
mm,
You can find my two books there. And of course, you will find the link to just jump over to Amazon. I have
mm,
both books, If Love Had a Heart and You Are My Entire Plan, on Amazon. Um, I also would invite persons to listen to my podcast
mm,
under Little John Listens. Um, you will hear interesting, wonderful information.
right.
Okay, because there's so much. I There were persons telling their stories of what happened to them, their experiences, all of that.
Mm,
um there is a richness in hearing what another human being is going through.
right.
Okay,
Right.
it it takes you outside of yourself, as well as for you to appreciate your own reality.
Mm,
Okay, be
mm.
tolerant and grateful at the same time. So you can listen to my podcast, Little John Listens. I have a few episodes there, and hopefully I will add more episodes this year.
Sure.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's NicoleLittlejohn.com, my website. Little John Listens, that's my podcast. My two books, If Love Had a Heart and You Are My Entire Plan. I also invite persons to email me. I love to talk to my audience. If you read my book, if you have any questions, if you just want to talk, actually, you
Mm,
can send me an email. That's Nicole Littlejohn books with an S, at gmail.com. You can also find my email on my website. Okay, so you can reach out to me. We can have a chat if you have an idea, or if you just want to make a suggestion, if you want to critique my book, whatever it is, I am open to listening.
awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, dear listeners, be sure to go and listen to Little John Listens on YouTube and gain some insights, and get your books from Amazon, if love had a heart and You're My Entire Plan. Thank you so much, Nicole, for tuning in. For not you tuning in, for the listeners tuning in, for you coming to the platform and sharing awesome insights. Thank you so much, and I think I learned a thing or two. And most importantly, I think I love the scope of your book and how it's there to help people navigate these issues around us. especially in their teenage years, knowing how to make the right choices about the people that they want to be with, and knowing that they can embrace differences. And differences is what makes the earth beautiful, isn't it? So yeah, thank you so much for educating us. And to the listener, thank you so much for listening to this point. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you grasped a thing or two, if not about the book, but then about Nicole, and you enjoyed today's podcast episode. My name is Iman, and until next time, I hope you keep learning, we keep educating ourselves, and we've become better than yesterday. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
All right. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning.